Radio as we do a Friday. Just muggy and kind of just gloomy outside as we head into the weekend. Still strong weather patterns in the forecast for the rest of the weekend. Chances of rain this afternoon, every afternoon. Updates on any of that stuff. If these storms develop 2 days in a row, they really caused a lot of traffic problems in our area. So we'll be tracking that tonight. The news is a little bit slow today. There's a lot of suspense built around the White House this afternoon as we are watching apparently earlier today, and this was, I guess, around lunchtime, the president and his team made a big deal of the president was heading to the Situation Room. Apparently, we have a situation, and the situation is they're close enough to a deal, and it's a deal to get a deal, really, if you want to put it bluntly, and they're close enough to this 60-day framework idea that Trump has to give final approval to it. Now, Trump's spokespeople put out they had a statement that said the Strait of Hormuz would be immediately opening, which of course we all know is the big disruption in oil, which is causing the prices to go up and all that. So it's just, we've seen it. This is Lucy in the football. I'm not saying it's the Trump team. The Trump team, I think, is trying to hold out and get the right deal. We don't have to do anything. The only pressure there would be to bear would be on the president with regard to the midterms and, of course, the prices and American people not being as patriotic as we used to be over gas prices. We're just a bunch of pansies nowadays about stuff like that. But the president knew that going in. I mean, he knew the political risk going in, so I think he's already pre-calculated how long he's willing to wait to deal with these people. Of course, the military portion has been over for weeks. It lasted about 5 weeks. And now we're trying to see if we can get final resolution to the disposition of the nuclear material, the opening of the strait, and some other plans going forward. So all that is, there are cameras all over the White House right now. We expect, we assume maybe Trump is going to pop out at some point and have something to say, or somebody on his behalf. But they have been holed up in there now for hours. I mean, it's been, I want to say it was around 10:30 or 11 when some of this news started breaking this afternoon. And so we'll just have to wait and see what they do about it. And of course, we'll go with that. The markets tracked the news today. The market's way up, record territory again. The Dow at one point, right now it's below 51,000, but it had crossed the 51,000 threshold. The NASDAQ doing the same thing today. Some of that started receding when it got slowed down. So the news itself that there could be a possible breakthrough, and again, I talked about it yesterday, I don't think Wall Street's kind of soulless. They don't care about nuclear material. They don't care about the regime. They don't care about humanitarian crises or any of that. They just want the oil flowing. That's business to them. And so it's all about the strait. So the news of the strait opening was met with great enthusiasm immediately when the news broke on the markets. And then they started settling for a little bit. They've kind of hung around being up about 300 or 400 points today. As far as oil, right now we're looking at 87 on the WTI. That's the one that we watch here in the United States, $87. It had gotten down to 86 something. Y'all, it's not going to be a surprise, especially if something gets inked and those ships start moving, that we're going to see 70 plus or a barrel of oil in the coming days. And then that'll take a few weeks to translate into the gasoline prices. As again, you talk about this all the time and try to explain it, and a lot of folks understand it. It's really kind of basic. These are the prices of oil contracts for oil to be delivered in the future. It's a futures market. So it's not like the price immediately affects the barrel in the ground. However, there is a factor in that the gas stations are charging us to have the cash on hand for those future prices. So when the barrel price goes up, they immediately raise their prices to know that they've got cash on hand to buy gasoline when it can get delivered to their stations. But then when it comes down, sometimes they are slower to pull it down. Again, it's a business decision of theirs based on the competitors that are nearby. But it's floating down already, and I do think we're going to see, it's not going to surprise me once, if this is resolved, and I'm looking at a wide shot right now of just hundreds and hundreds of tankers just sitting around, loaded with oil. They've been loaded up for weeks and weeks. They can't get out. And remember, during this logjam, the Iranians and other nations in the area were so desperate to keep their wells moving that they kept loading up ships. Some of the ships that were around there when all this started were empty. So just about every ship you will see that is this kind of cargo. There are other, of course, other goods that are transported through that strait every day. But every oil tanker that you see, it's loaded to the point where the Iranians were starting to dump oil in the sea just to keep from shutting their pumps down. And it's crisis level for all of them. And have been maintaining for a long time. That oil hasn't necessarily gotten priced into the market as far as the supply side because we didn't know when it would be eligible for delivery. So suddenly it's going to be a kink in the system, and it doesn't happen overnight, but you're going to have just millions and millions of gallons being pushed out of the strait onto the markets all over the world, which will affect world prices, and all that seems very positive this afternoon. But we're still 45 minutes out from the close or so, and we'll let you know where all that lands here on this Friday as we head into the weekend. That's probably the biggest story today. The other story that, of course, got my attention, I did one of those middle of the night wake up things, and usually I don't even get my computer or my phone out, but I was wide awake this morning. Looked up and saw that Blue Origin explosion. That was unbelievable. Now, there are lots of ways to look at that. Blue Origin, of course, Jeff Bezos' company, a direct competitor to SpaceX, but they're not competitors in the way normal, capitalism has competition. They're just two companies pushing hard to get ahead of the game in space travel. And man, when this thing went up, it was 20% of the explosive power of the bomb that went off in Hiroshima. And it took $1 billion launch platform, which is a platform specifically designed for this heavy lift rocket, and just destroyed the platform, much less the rocket. It was a total, somewhere I read today, and I don't know if I can really verify this, but this was the largest non-nuclear man-made explosion, intentional or unintentional, in world history. So in other words, it wasn't supposed to do that. Now, the optimists that understand the danger of space travel, even Elon Musk tweeted or posted immediately that, hey, man, rockets are difficult. It's very dangerous stuff, and it's true for SpaceX. Programs like this are going to have setbacks because what they're doing in these tests are pushing the limits of the elements of the rocket. They got to know how far they can push it, and they found out on this one. The exact cause may not be known for a long time, but it will obviously a setback for Blue Origin, but it's why you do tests. Apollo missions had the same issues. SpaceX has had issues, and then you learn from every one of these. And by a optimistic stretch, that means space travel gets safer after that because you've learned what not to do. I think that's all of humanity and all of development. We do things in fits and starts and try not to do them again. So we'll be updating on that if there's any other stuff. I did notice there's a news conference. AJ, I don't think we'll go to it because it's not urgent for us just yet. But New Jersey authorities are calling a news conference right now to address these ramped up riots that have suddenly fired up again now that it's summertime, and these losers need to have a framework to create some. It's such a script. They did this in 20. They did it in 24. Here we are in 26, another election year, and they're trying to manufacture some summer riots. Short of some Yahoo getting shot or killed by the police, they ain't got much to go on, so they're back going after ICE again. And it's kind of a huge embarrassment for New Jersey because they're not helping the feds, but the feds around their own facilities have begun cracking heads and arresting people, which is good. I enjoy that part. I wish they go back to tasing people. That was my favorite part. I love to see a fella get ride the lightning and just plank every now and then. We haven't gotten treated to those in a long time. But we'll see how this works out this afternoon, whatever New Jersey has to say. It is a state run by bedwetters who are doing the bedwetter thing and not being helpful at all in these matters. Well, that's probably going to get us set up. Alabama did win a court case. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break as it relates to this big fight that's been going on for months over drawing districts, this time state districts, and there has been some action on that today. We'll talk about that. Get your phone calls in here too. 545-9950 is the phone number if you want to get on the show. Get on the show, and we'll put you on the show. Right back here in just a minute. Lead on Live, Talk 99.5. Guess I better turn this microphone on. Speaking of money and things, man, our good friends over at Alabama Gold Refinery ready to help you out if you want to get into gold. In uncertain times or good times, it's always good to have gold. You've been told that probably your whole life. I have too. And the thing is, even if you got scrap stuff and you want to sell it, some people, you don't know where to take it. Do you take it to some pawn shop, some person that does this on the side, or to a place like Alabama Gold Refinery that's just a commodities business? They do this all the time, day after day, and they're fair, and it's a safe location. I love everything about their location. It's a central location a lot of folks can get to from all over town, and then, of course, they've got all the security features built in that you would imagine. So y'all go and see them on 29th Street. Some of you will remember where the old Zoe's was on the downtown Homewood on 29th, right there across from the big, tall Regions Bank. Y'all, it is Alabama Gold Refinery, AGR, alabamagoldrefinery.com. Hang on just a second, AJ. I got to take care of some business. I got dudes in my yard digging stuff, and they're asking me questions. I'm like, man, I'm trying to do the radio. They don't even know. All right. AGR, y'all go see them on 29th, alabamagoldrefinery.com. Now, the news networks have all their cameras trained on the White House. They're presuming there's going to be a news conference. We don't know if that's a Friday announcement. There's part of me that thinks strategically Trump may delay, even if they know whatever they want to announce with this deal with the Iranians. They may wait and delay that announcement till after the market closes. Because either way, there's going to be a huge market effect, and there might need to be, a couple of days to consider the deal. But I don't know if they're timing it for that, or they're just literally back there going back and forth across the pond with these maniacs in Iran. The one thing I don't like about the deal that we've heard, at least the parameters that have been presented, is that it looks like that you're still going to have whatever's left of this regime in place. Now, the internet is back on, and we're starting to see new images come out of Iran that we haven't seen during this whole episode, some that were just couldn't be transmitted of the beginning of this, when some of their people were slaughtered in the streets and some of the mass protests. The world has not seen all that. The Iranians shut their whole country off to the world for two reasons: to keep that from getting out and keep news from the world from getting in, so they could keep their people under control. And from the outset of this, I was optimistic and thought it would be a liberation of these people, and it still might. But that was never, to be fair to the Trump administration, that was never one of their stated goals. They never said from the outset that they wanted to overthrow the government or have a regime change or get these people out of there. They have talked about their brutality, both in world terrorism and against their own people. But the stated goals, if you're going to be very, very strict and technical about it, have been achieved, because we've destroyed the nuclear program. There's still vestiges of it, and they could easily attempt it. Might still take them a decade, but they'd be back at it. The world would be back under the gun of these people again if the regime stays in place and some of that capability stays there. So to complete that goal, you got to get the nuclear material. It's apparently buried from the bombing campaigns that we ran, where they had it in a bunker. And the talk today, and again, none of this can be absolutely verified this afternoon, is that we're going to go in and dig it out. With the Iranians are going to, that's part of the deal. They'll allow us in. We're going to dig it out, and we're not going to take possession of it, but it'll be, quote, destroyed. Honestly, I have no idea how you destroy nuclear material, but it would be destroyed, and probably with the International Atomic Energy Agency, as feckless as they eventually became, overseeing the destruction. But the United States is going to supervise the removal, and then that takes that issue off the table. The Strait has to open first. I think what the Iranians are holding out for is to get some unfrozen assets that have been frozen in some cases for decades all over the world, as they, again, have been a world pariah for 47 years, going on 48 years. And they want some of that to restore some of that funding. And Trump has been hesitant to do any of that. The stupid thing would be to give them straight American cash like Barack Obama did. That, to this day, I can't imagine a dumber thing that a president could do, and he did it because they were desperate. They paid them to get a deal, and in some ways, Trump is having to negotiate to get a deal, but it's from completely different circumstances. And so again, the three main goals was to destroy their threat to their neighbors by getting rid of their Navy and Air Force, to get rid of the nuke program, and of course, to make all these things happen in that order. And they did with the military campaign, but then came the hostage situation with the Strait, and that's what it seems like they're trying to undo. There were some announcements earlier today, and I'm not going to dwell on this for the whole show, but it is important in the moment. There were some announcements earlier in the day that America was ceasing our operation to contain the other ships. In other words, we've got a blockade of all the Iranian assets. Iran's trying to threaten the world assets, and all that is what, again, the markets and the media and everybody else are waiting to see how it shakes out. So we're watching it. Now, back to the court ruling. We need to talk about that for just a minute. We had a win in the 11th Circuit, the state of Alabama did, while we have wasted a lot of time talking about the congressional districts, which is still a gigantic mess. And I will submit to you, and I will stay with this story. I haven't been proven otherwise, that we could have done this a whole lot of a simpler way and made all the other court arguments moot, but we didn't. We decided to stay with that ridiculous map from 23, and now we're still uncertain. There was even one commentator today that said this August 11th primary, which the governor had to come out and move the qualification around on that yesterday because of the uncertainty of the Supreme Court. There was one commentator that said we'll still have that election even if we don't have clarity over the districts, but we just don't know if we'll use the winners of that race or the winners of the other races from last week, which is so ridiculous. So, and remember, we got to get all this done by the general election in the fall. But here we are. So, as you know, Clarence Thomas gave a 4 o'clock Eastern deadline for Monday. And so we'll wait on that. The last time the court set a deadline for the litigants in that case, both sides, they immediately ruled. I think within an hour and a half, they ruled and gave Alabama clarity. We don't know if it's on that kind of freight train or we're going to see something that happens otherwise. But we did get a win. Again, this is under the umbrella of the landmark decision that led to the removal of race-based districts. We got a win in our state Senate map. And this was an issue that didn't get, it got a lot of Montgomery attention, but there were two districts that under question. And now the 11th Circuit has said that Alabama can move forward with the map it drew, not the maps the court tried to draw. The court literally took a map that a college freshman drew and put that in. They just did it themselves, which is not the court's responsibility. The court should decide on constitutionality. So we go back to the map that the elected representatives of the state of Alabama drew, and it's going to change at least two of those districts. And now the governor has called a special session for those two districts. And so that doesn't affect as many people in the audience, but here we are dealing with that one. And in that case, defaulting back to the overall state map might have been expeditious because it wasn't that many districts involved. Senate maps, I think we've got, boy, it's amazing that my memory starts to fade. We've got 35 senators as opposed to 7 congressmen, so it's little districts all over the state of Alabama that represent us in the legislature. But I don't know how that will change qualification. We'll look into some of that later in the show, and we'll get to it when we can. So a lot of stuff on hold while we wait for any kind of developments from the White House this afternoon. Meantime, we still got fallout from all these other stories. I still got UFO stuff in the news. I can't get away from it. I think it's going to be nonstop between now and it's going to be nonstop between now and the release of this movie on the 12th, and then probably sometime after that, because the movie will just stir up more controversy as well. So, man, it's just one of those. It's one of those weeks, man. It's hard to believe it's only been a 4-day week, and we had Monday off. All right, so let's get on down the road. 545. If y'all want to throw something on the table, bring it. 545-9950. Lonnie's Furniture Company bringing you the show. I do appreciate John and Reggie being with us for all these years. I know the audience appreciates them because I have no idea how many hundreds of people in this audience have gotten great furniture deals and are sitting on it. every night, or sleeping on it every single night in their homes because of the incredible store that is Lonnius Furniture Company. It's a Now they're kind of humble folks. They're not as braggadocious as I am about them. But y'all, this is a superstore. This is a mega store. This is 1,000 square feet under one roof with all the selection you could possibly imagine from the best furniture builders in America, and stuff from all over the world as well. They've got this stressless line, which I think is a European line. People love this furniture. This is really high end, sort of modern looking stuff that's more ergonomic and adjustable. And they've got a whole sort of mini showroom where you can custom order the stressless line. Same thing with Bassett. You can go over to the Bassett corner. I like the way Reggie put it. He called it a Build-A-Bear workshop, where you can just build your own furniture, have it designed from what you want from all their templates. And then if you're willing to wait a little bit, they'll get it to you. The Memorial Day sale that started last weekend is continuing this week. So go take them up on it. It's $1,000 off every, excuse me, $100 off every $1,000 that you spend. And then specific deals on 2 truckloads of amazing Lazy Boys and other motion and sectional furniture ready to go to your house this summer. It is Lonnius Furniture Company on exit 280, LonniusFurnitureCompany.com. Back here in just a minute. weekend. My man Danny Knowles is with the Knowles Group. He's ready to help you out with your things. AJ, do I sound out of breath? Man, look, I'll tell you about Danny here in just a minute. So I've got a work crew here where they're just starting digging some footings on a little bit of an expansion project I'm doing. And there was an issue over where is the setback line. Now, I know exactly where it is. Have you ever tried to describe something like that on a phone? So they called me during the show. It was like, we want to make sure we're, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, it's over here and it's over there. This was in the last break. I was like, I'm just going to have to come over there and show you. So I just ran up to this site because I'm using the home studio today. Thank goodness I'm here today. I don't know what I'd do if I was at the station. So literally during that last break, AJ, we were pulling string, marking it off, pulling tape measures, showing where the 50-foot line is. I'm out of breath. And it's hot and sweaty today. Swamp ass season has officially started in the state of Alabama. I ain't kidding. Danny Knowles is with the Knowles Group, N-O-L-E-S, the KnowlesGroup.com, the KnowlesGroup.com. Listen to their show tomorrow, and they've got a show that airs. AJ, is it 2 to 3 or 3 to 4?
No, it's 2 to 3.
AJ handles all that programming schedule. So 2 to 3, both Saturday and Sunday. Generally, sometimes it's Danny, sometimes it's his sons. He's raised such fine young gentlemen, and I love it that they're following in their father's footsteps. I didn't want my sons following in my footsteps. I wanted them to get a respectable job. But Danny's boys learn from the best, and they really are. They've got such the right touch of treating people with respect. They don't talk down to their clients. They just try to make you money. And so if you have some questions about your financial planning, go talk to them. Whether you want them to completely take it over or you just want some advice, everybody's got a different situation of risk tolerance and timelines and money goals and comfort levels, and they'll help you pull that whole formula together and get it right. I'm really just making a personal introduction to a lifelong friend. I tell you all that all the time because I can't qualify exactly how they do what they do. I think I generally understand it, but I just know they've had incredible success over the years, and that's why I highly recommend my friend Danny Knowles. If you're worried about your money, and aren't we all, the KnowlesGroup.com, the KnowlesGroup.com. I was watching this Blue Origin rocket. AJ, did you see that? I know you were busy at the beginning of the show when we were talking about it. Did you see this Blue Origin thing blow up?
Oh, yeah. I saw that the other day. Lord. Yeah, that was crazy.
I got to thinking, there are people, I was just joking to myself. I thought, I've had days like that at work. I've had shows that felt like that. Mm-hmm. Then I got to thinking, there's some professions where everything can go wrong in a day, and Blue Origin's got so much money that they can blow up $1 billion launch platform and explode their whole rocket program, and they'll be right back at it tomorrow. But there's some people that just can't have a bad day at work. For some of y'all, I don't know, bad day at work is what? You got to turn in the TPS reports, or if I'm a talk show host, we have a bad, like if you're a brain surgeon, you can't have a bad day. You can't go, oh, what the hell was that?
Right.
Whoops. That's the worst thing you want to hear if you're like laying there on the table and somebody goes, oh, damn.
Oh, wait a minute. He was not supposed to get that removed.
It was like wrong leg. That actually, we've had stories like that recently in the news. They take out the wrong kidney or something like that. So some people just can't, but it's on public display. If you're a big rocket company, everything's out there for the world to see, and then boom. I just wonder how it feels. Not just for Bezos. This dude's swimming in money. How much money does he have? His wife took half, and he's still got a bunch of money. And he's got that plastic face woman that, do you think he was secretly wanting this to happen when he sent her up? I'm just being real with y'all. Do you think he was like, go ahead and put Katy Perry on there too? I'm tired of listening to her music as well. But I'm kidding. They didn't really, it wasn't really a rocket launch. It was just this stunt. But yeah, I can imagine being him, but this guy's he's got the money to redevelop, and they all know the risk. But what about these scientists, man? There are so many people that put sweat equity. Our state, huge contributors to the space program. And of course, we wouldn't be in space without the work that's done in Huntsville from way back in the 60s. And you've got a lot of folks that are still connected to both the private sector and then these public sector programs that work together. And I don't doubt that some people around Huntsville were part of that test last night. And I just can't imagine how that feels to watch. It's twofold. You're disappointed because you didn't achieve the success, but then you got to rebuild now. You got to start over with all that stuff. And and it's a setback that could take, I suppose, years. I don't know enough about it to know how long something like this lasts. When do they have the backup rocket? How long will it? But you got to rebuild that whole launch pad, is what I understand. But crazy stuff. What was funny was a video that I saw of some good old boys fishing. As y'all know, this was down on Cape Canaveral, so they were out on the water fishing. I don't even know if they knew there was a rocket launch going on. And then I got to thinking, with all this alien stuff in the news, can you imagine what they thought? They just suddenly, it looked like the sun was coming up for a little bit. It was amazing. All right, let's see what else we got. Speaking of aliens, last night we had the story of the White House put up an alien tracker website, and people presumed it had to do with this UFO hype, and they were weaving that theme into tracking where illegals are being arrested around the country. And one person just posted this a little while ago, and it's fascinating to me because it's come full circle. 30 years ago, I was doing stories about illegal immigrants in Albertville, Alabama. And I'll give you all the backstory on that. Some of you longtime listeners have heard all those stories, but this tracker, somebody went on the tracker just to look. I think you can look up your own community to see how many people have been deported. We got Daryl that calls us every day, frustrated with the slow deportations. But you can actually track how many offenses, what type of offenses some of these people are getting picked up for. But over in Albertville, which is not a huge town, a huge chicken plant town, they have, over the past year, since Tom Homan and the gang have been busy, they have rounded up 400 illegals, arrested on a number of different charges in this one little bitty town. So there's a quick summary. It's the actual number is 392 since the January the 24th. The criminal charges include arson, assault, burglary, dangerous drugs, family offenses, fights, escapes, forgeries, fraudulent activities, general crime, health, safety, immigration laws themselves, invasion of privacy, larceny, liquor, obstructing the judiciary, blah, 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 obstructing Congress or the legislature. It's just a range of things that some of them have been called, and they have hailed from the following countries. This is just a profile of the deportations in Albertville, Alabama. They come from El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Peru, Spain, Tunisia, and Venezuela. And then they've got some gang affiliation stuff checked off the list too. So it's a fascinating site. I'm not sure I'm going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but Albertville is interesting. And because back in the 90s, we didn't have the levels of immigration that we have now, but it was starting to appear. And I had kept getting news tips from people in this community saying, you got to come up here and do a story on this. There are people, they just presumed everybody was from Mexico. And at the time, and this would have been about 1995, 96, at the time, they were mostly from Mexico. And they were going to work in the chicken plants. And this is when my eyes were just open. I decided to do a new series on illegal immigration. It was even a sensitive topic back then. I had a very liberal news editor that didn't want to even touch the story. I'll never forget, I had a line in there that said, Albertville is now a magnet for Mexicans. She goes, why do we have to call them Mexicans? I said, because they're from Mexico. She was sensitive to even people being called, they're Mexicans. They're from Mexico. We're Americans. So they let the line stay in the story. So it was fits and starts. So I go up to Albertville. I got run out of the parking lot of a chicken plant. They had security everywhere. Didn't want any media anywhere near seeing the inside of what the operations were going on. I saw how sensitive the corporate entities in the area were to the fact that they were busing in these illegals. They'd put them on buses where you couldn't see who was on the bus and pick them up in these trailer parks. They were living in shifts in these trailers. In other words, there'd be a crew that slept all night, and then the crew that worked all night would come in and sleep in the same beds. The beds still be warm. That crew would get up and go to the plant and continue the jobs, and they'd just rotate through these trailers. One trailer had 25 people living in it, and this whole trailer park had been consumed by it. So as I go along, you'd think even 30 years ago that the community in Albertville would start to be resentful of people just moving in on them and taking those jobs. And I'll never forget this good old boy I was talking to. I said, do you feel like they took your jobs? He goes, no, man. The logic was so simple. He goes, He said, 3 months ago, I was cleaning chickens. Now I'm a manager. I went, okay. And then I remember we finally were able to talk 2 young ladies into interviewing with us that lived in that trailer park just to get their side of the story. Y'all remember that back when the media used to try to get all the sides of the story? Well, we wanted to hear what it was like for them to be here, be, illegal and sort of in the shadows and trying to make a living. And so we finally found 2 people that knew we weren't there to arrest them. We weren't from immigration, and they came out through an interpreter and talked to us in Spanish. And I asked them, I said, aren't you afraid of getting caught? I mean, just a simple question. And this girl laughed she just laughed right in my face and told me, she goes, no. She goes, it's a free ride home. It's easy to get back. I mean, I was so young and naive. I was in my 20s. I went, seriously? She goes, yeah. She goes, if I get caught, I get to go see my family, get to go back home and visit, where she's from. She goes, but I can be back here in 2 weeks. It's no problem. I was under this naive notion that the country gave a damn about the border, or really there was some hassle to getting here. And that was sort of the beginning of the wave. And Albertville, Alabama was the epicenter. All of Marshall County, in fact, was the epicenter of illegal immigration in this country. Florida had been used to it. You have migrant workers that will come in and pick crops, but they rotate with the crops. When those crops have been picked, they would move north and pick tomatoes. They'd kind of migrant farm workers, and the society in those days would just kind of look past that. But Albertville was the first sort of industrialization, I guess, of those jobs where they were working in industry for corporations above the table, I suppose. And it hasn't changed since, and it's still got a huge population. So I would, and then over time you started seeing a heavier presence in Birmingham, and there are now concentrations in communities that are doing well. There are a lot of people that are thriving, some people that are here causing trouble. But it was Albertville, Alabama. There was a joke during that whole news series of even what was funny about this. Y'all forgive me for telling all my old man stories, but this did happen. There were 2. I was talking to one of the law enforcement guys up there who was just talking about how they have the biggest problem he had with it was if they got in a car wreck, they'd just walk away from the scene because they didn't have any insurance. Some didn't want to lose their job and get caught. So they would literally leave whoever they hit hanging and leave the car and move and just take off. And so they had an entire junkyard full of wrecked cars where these people from Mexico would come here, get in a car wreck, and just leave the car. It was over. Forget the car. They're not going to go. They're not going to file it on the insurance and get it turned in. They just abandon the car and move on to another town. And so they wouldn't have anything to do with cars, but to put them in that big sort of recall yard or whatever you would call it. So, but one of the guys that was talking to me about that, he said, there's a rumor going around that there's a sign right on the Mexican border that says, if you want a job, go to Albertville. And I tried my best to find that sign. We called around. It wasn't the days of the internet where things were searchable, to see if somebody could find a picture or photograph if there was an actual sign. And he wasn't kidding. And then later I was talking to a guy that worked at one of the plants, and he opened up to me, and we sat down, and he goes, yeah, he said, when I crossed the border, I saw this sign. It said Albertville. So I came here. And I was like, are you serious? Where'd you cross? And he wouldn't tell me where he crossed. But so again, to see this in the news about Albertville still being sort of in the middle of it is not that surprising. But that's where it started. And now, of course, we got folks from countries all over the world. What we didn't know then, we just thought it was the old traditional story of migration where people are looking for a better life. You come into the greatest country in the world. And largely, I do think it was. There were jobs here that couldn't be had there. And so you take the risk, you take the chance, and you go to America to work. And it largely was what drove immigration, legal and illegal, over the history of this country. But then something much more sinister took over, especially in the 2000s. And these people were being coordinated to come here for larger reasons. And that's just a hijack of the country, to get them on the voter rolls, to ensconce the power of the Democrats, to change the dynamic of the census, to preserve their votes in the United States Congress and the Electoral College, and all the things that go with it. Thus, all the fraud programs that you're seeing busted right now from people all over the world, that's not even, I don't even blame the immigrants for taking advantage of these idiots in our own government that opened up those opportunities for them to do that just to get them to come here. It's an incentive to come here. It was an incentive to come here and get rich off the backs of the American taxpayer And politicians, like in Minnesota and other places, just let them do it with a cynical agenda to get them here, get them comfortable, get them ensconced, get them enrolled, and help them stay. And you and I paid for it. How about that? There's a long, windy story about immigration. 545-9950. If y'all want to get on the show tonight, bring it. 545-9950. Leland Live, Talk 99.5. Back here in just a minute. All right, y'all, 253. Let's keep on doing our thing this afternoon. Our buddy E's over here on the phone. He's got a traffic update. I'm like, I saw that on the board. I was like, uh-oh, here we go again. What's going on out there right now, E? AJ?
Right after.
There he is. Go ahead, E. Start over, man. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. 65 South, right after the Pelham exit, heading toward Alabaster Calera. It's a parking lot, and 31 is not getting any better. And I just saw like 3 cop cars on the shoulder flying down that way. So whatever happened, I don't know. It's going to be down there a minute, and 31 is not any better either. So.
Okay, so relocate that. I'm going to look it up here while you're talking and try to see if I can find out where it is on this map.
Oh, I see it. Right at the Alabaster exit. What is that, 238?
238, yeah.
It's a parking lot all the way almost to Think Farm exit in Pelham.
Seeing it now on the map, it is that's exit 238 southbound. Boy, it's Friday. People are heading down to the beach and doing stuff, and that's going to be a booger this afternoon.
31's not any better.
Yeah, because you see people now starting to get off to try to go toward Calera on 31 and some other spots. So y'all look out. You just saved your afternoon. You can find another way to head south. I'm telling you, y'all can take this tip or not. But if you live, thanks, E. Did he hang up? I thought I heard the hang up.
Yeah, he hung up.
if you are heading south on a Friday night and you have something like this, maybe you haven't left the house yet. If you live anywhere around, say, Shelby County or even over toward Leeds or anything on the east side of Birmingham, I'm telling y'all, go the back way through Columbiana. Just do it. There are back roads that will take you all the way to Clanton, and you can get south. There are other ways to go and do that over to the west, I guess down through Bibb County, but that one little area every Friday almost is always clogged. And it's because you've got travelers that are not even Birmingham folks. You got Nashville people and others all heading south in the summer. Almost every single Friday, there's just massive traffic going down through there. And if anything bad gets weird, it's just going to be a nightmare for you. And you're going to be there late. It's bad enough if you're driving late trying to do a 5 or 6 hour drive. But yeah, thank you, E. E's always good like that, keeping us on top of things. Now, before we get too much further down the road, let me bring up this LA mayor's race. Again, it doesn't affect us directly, but it's fun to watch. And I have to give this caveat because people get it wrong. In no way am I predicting this guy is going to win this mayor's race, but it is absolutely just delightful to see a poll that came out this morning that has him in the lead. This Spencer Pratt was ahead of Karen Bass. Now, that was a head-to-head two-person poll. There are 3 people in the race, and I saw a poll 2 days ago that had it as a 3-way jump ball. And there's no way to suspect whether or not, any of them are going to win. It's just impossible to call. But it's all about trajectory. And I tried to explain this yesterday and probably didn't do a good job at it because I think I rushed through the explanation. But are you heading, what's been your trend in your polling? Are you heading up, and how fast are you heading up? That's your speed. That's your rate of speed. And it's just like if you were racing a car we just talked about traffic on 65. If there's a car in the right lane, you're in the left lane, you're both trying to get to the exit first. The car that's going faster, even though if I took a picture of your 2 cars and the picture shows you neck and neck, if you just tried to judge that by that picture, you'd think the 2 cars were tied heading to the exit ramp. But what if I told you one car's going 90 and the other car's going 75? Well, then you know who's going to get there first. Spencer Pratt seems to have picked up speed in the polling. Now, this is not analytical because I haven't been able to break down polls that are similar or same methodology, or, if I really want to nerd out, I'd compare the same pollster and the trend lines from those pollsters. But what we can gather from a distance over here on the other side of the country is this guy has just picked up speed over the last 2 weeks like nothing I've seen in a long time, especially in a blue city. Look, blue city voters are just idiotic in their voting. They're very security oriented. These people are interdependent. If you live in a major city, you're so interdependent on systems. I think it's a challenge to that is frightening. And it's not a smart choice. You're getting more of the same they continue to put foolish people in office in our major cities, almost to a city in this country. So, history would dictate this guy doesn't have a chance. But honestly, Karen Bass has screwed it up that badly. The converse to his speed and momentum as of Friday is her collapse. She is going in the other direction. In other words, her campaign's kind of tapping the brakes in terms of poll momentum. And so it doesn't surprise me that on a Friday, she's now been overtaken. And if the pace were to continue, if he stays on his trajectory at his velocity and she continues to decline, this guy could wind up first. Again, I'm not predicting it, but the numbers are there. The math is there, and it's eye-popping to see. I think he's tapped into a group of people that aren't partisan. They don't care about Republicans or Democrats, but they're sick of seeing their city die, and they're just not going to keep voting for these same foolish people. This woman's been an idiot since she was in her 20s trying to be a communist revolutionary, and in her heart she still is. And those people just come in and wreck things. That's what they do. That's what they've always done. All right, top of the hour, 1819 news on the way, 545-9950. Lead on live. Y'all stay tuned.